It was a warm evening, one of those rare nights where the sun still lingered in the sky, casting golden hues across the city. Anna had just wrapped up a lively dinner with friends, the kind of casual get-together where the conversation flowed effortlessly, filled with laughter and shared stories. It had been a welcome escape, a brief respite from the chaos that always seemed to swirl around her life. She could already feel the tension from work easing as she made her way to the car. Her phone buzzed, pulling her from her thoughts. She glanced at the screen and saw the name she least expected to see. Ethan. The flash of his name was enough to send a quick chill down her spine, even though she had braced herself for this moment. She sighed, tapping the screen to answer. The moment the call connected, his voice rang out with an unsettling calmness, though there was a hint of excitement, almost smugness, in his tone. Anna. Ethan's voice began, smooth and calculated. I'm divorcing you. I've already sold the company, and I'm moving on with Jessica. We're starting fresh, together. His words echoed in her ear, hanging there like a weighty declaration. She leaned back against the car, taking a slow breath. It wasn't the first time Ethan had spoken as if he owned the world, but this time, something felt different. There was an edge to his tone, a satisfaction that she found hard to ignore. He thought he had won. Anna remained silent for a moment, allowing the words to sink in. Divorce, company sold, a fresh start. But there was no anger, no rush to respond. Instead, she replied with an unhurried calmness, a coolness that made the air feel even heavier between them. Good for you, she said, her voice unwavering, free from the emotion he had clearly been expecting. He chuckled, as if to mock her response, but she could hear the unease beneath the surface. He didn't expect her to take it so easily. There was a pause, a beat of silence before he spoke again, his voice dripping with satisfaction. I hope you're not too attached to any of it, Anna. It's all gone. And you? Well, you're just the past now. Anna could almost hear the smug grin in his words, his belief that he had outmaneuvered her. Yet, something in her felt remarkably steady. She wasn't angry. She wasn't hurt. She just wasn't surprised. You know what's funny, Ethan? She replied slowly, her words precise. Because I've just finished transferring our assets. Ethan's laughter, which had once been a comforting sound in their earlier years, faltered at the edges. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Anna could hear the brief crack in his voice. It was the sound of a man who was starting to realize that the world he had built for himself wasn't as secure as he thought. There was no panic in her tone, no sense of victory either, just the plain, matter-of-fact delivery of someone who had been playing a different game all along. The kind of game where all the pieces were already in place, and the checkmate was inevitable. The line went silent, and Anna stood there, waiting for his reaction. It wasn't long before Ethan finally broke the silence, his voice now tinged with confusion, frustration, and a touch of fear. What are you talking about? She let the question hang in the air for a moment, savoring the shift in the dynamic. Ethan, for all his bluster, had always underestimated Anna. He had thought she was the quiet partner, the one who managed the details but was invisible when it came to the real power. But she wasn't invisible at all. She was the backbone of everything they had built, and now, as he prided himself on his grand exit, she was the one holding all the cards. I've taken everything into account, Ethan, she replied, her voice as steady as ever. I've been a step ahead of you this whole time, and I'm the one who's walking away with it all. His arrogance had vanished from his voice now. It had been replaced with a creeping panic, the realization that his plans were crumbling faster than he could grasp. I don't believe this, he spat, the edge of his voice revealing that his confidence was quickly eroding. You think you've won? The business is gone. You've lost, Anna. She could hear him pacing now, the shuffle of his footsteps in the background, his attempts to maintain control slipping away. But Anna wasn't moved. She didn't need to fight him back with words, didn't need to argue with him. She had already won. I haven't lost anything, Ethan, she said softly, her voice cutting through the tension. In fact, I've just begun. She hung up before he could say anything more. The sound of the call ending was a finality. It wasn't just the end of a conversation. It marked the end of something much bigger. She had known this moment was coming, and she had prepared for it in ways Ethan could never understand. He had been too busy building his empire on lies and half-truths, assuming that his charm and bravado could carry him through. But Anna had always been the one who truly held the power. She was the one who had made the sacrifices, the one who had quietly laid the groundwork for their success. And now she was about to make sure it stayed in her hands. Anna took one last breath before walking back to her car, a sense of calm washing over her. There was work to be done, and she was more than ready for the challenge. But this time, she wouldn't be playing in the shadows. She would make sure Ethan knew exactly who had been pulling the strings all along. As she started the engine, the familiar hum of the car felt like a small victory. The game had shifted, and it was her turn to call the shots. "Good for you," she whispered again, a faint smile playing at the corners of her lips. It was good for her too. Anna sat at the desk in her lawyer's office, the weight of the papers in front of her feeling oddly light despite their importance. The calm of the room, with its muted colors and polished wood, was a stark contrast to the storm of thoughts swirling in her mind. Ethan's words echoed in her ears, the sound of his arrogance still ringing clear, but his voice no longer held power over her. The truth was, Anna had been preparing for this moment for years. She had watched Ethan bask in the glory of their success, while she quietly worked behind the scenes, building the infrastructure that had truly held their business together. As she signed the last of the divorce papers, a small but satisfying smile crept onto her face. The ink on the page wasn't just a formality, it was a symbol of control. It was the final step in severing the ties that had bound her to him for so long. But it wasn't just about the divorce. It was about reclaiming what was rightfully hers. Ethan had always assumed that his charm and charm alone could carry him through. But Anna had learned long ago that true power wasn't in the spotlight. It was in the quiet decisions, the unspoken moments when you chose not to react, but to prepare. David, the lawyer, glanced up at her, a furrow of concern crossing his face. "Are you sure about this, Anna?" he asked, his voice tinged with genuine worry. He had known her long enough to recognize the strength behind her calm demeanor. But even he couldn't fully grasp the scope of what was unfolding. "I've never been more certain of anything," Anna replied, her tone steady and assured. "And please call me Anna from now on. No more formalities." It was as if she had shed the last layer of pretense, fully embracing the role she was about to step into. As she left the lawyer's office, the cool evening air hit her face, but it couldn't cool the fire burning inside her. The reality of what she had done, the decisions she had made, began to settle in. Her thoughts turned to the company, to the late nights spent going through spreadsheets, the early mornings when she had pored over financial reports while Ethan waltzed into meetings, charming clients and investors with his easy smile. But he had never known what it took to keep the business afloat. While he focused on looking good, she had been the one making the hard calls, taking the risks, ensuring the company's survival even when the odds were stacked against them. As she pulled into the driveway of their home, her eyes flicked toward the spot where Ethan's sports car was parked, the same sleek machine that had always seemed to symbolize his confidence, his certainty that he would always come out on top. But today, that car felt like a relic of a past she was done with, the past she was ready to leave behind. The door to the house opened with a soft creak as Anna stepped inside. The house, once a symbol of their shared success, now felt cold and unfamiliar. Ethan was lounging in the living room, sprawled on the couch like a king who had just claimed his throne. Jessica, his new partner, stood by the window, her red dress a striking contrast to the dimming light outside. The scene could have been a painting, a perfect depiction of Ethan's world, one that he believed would remain unchallenged. Anna's steps were measured as she walked into the room. There was no rush, no need to hurry. This was her moment and she was in full control. Ethan's eyes flicked to her as she approached, a smug smile curling at the corner of his lips. He was still holding on to the illusion that he had won. But Anna wasn't interested in indulging him. She placed her briefcase on the coffee table with deliberate slowness, allowing the soft thud to break the silence. Yes, we do have matters to discuss, she said, her voice smooth and unwavering. Ethan's smile faltered as she pulled out a thick folder from her bag. I've already spoken with our lawyers. The divorce papers will be ready tomorrow. And I've already found a buyer for the business. Jessica's eyes narrowed, clearly trying to make sense of the situation. But Anna continued, cutting her off before she could speak. That's interesting, isn't it? Because according to these documents, Ethan, you don't actually have the authority to sell anything. The smile on Ethan's face began to crack, his earlier confidence fading as Anna opened the folder to reveal the paperwork that would destroy his carefully laid plans. He sat up, his brow furrowing in confusion. What are you talking about? His voice, once so full of arrogance, now betrayed the first signs of panic. You see, Ethan, Anna continued, while you were busy being the face of our company, I was quietly becoming its backbone. As majority shareholder and CEO, I'm afraid any sale would require my approval. The papers spread out on the table were not just documents. They were the key to her victory. Each page was a testament to the years of hard work and sacrifice she had made, hidden in plain sight while Ethan played the role of the charming CEO. Jessica stepped forward, her previously confident demeanor wavering. Ryan told me he owned the controlling interest, she said, her voice shaky now. Ryan, Anna corrected her, has a habit of telling people exactly what they want to hear. She turned to Jessica, her eyes sharp. Did he also tell you about the $500,000 he embezzled last year? Or the falsified contracts with overseas suppliers? The color drained from Ethan's face as Anna laid out the evidence, her voice calm but firm, every word landing with precision. You're bluffing? Ethan snapped, but there was no conviction behind it. Am I? Anna's lips curled into a smile, the kind she had learned from him. One that was all teeth, no warmth. She pulled out another file, the one that would seal his fate. The SEC would be very interested in these transactions, she said smoothly, watching as both Ethan and Jessica's faces paled. The sound of heels clicking against the hardwood floors was the only noise as Jessica, now visibly shaken, backed away, grabbing her purse and hurrying out the door. Anna's gaze lingered on Ethan. His shoulders slumped, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. She gathered her documents, her hands steady as ever. I'll leave you to process all this, she said coolly. Oh, and don't bother coming to the office tomorrow. Your access has been revoked. Security has been notified. As she turned to walk toward the stairs, she paused at the bottom step, her voice drifting back to him. You know, Ethan, the funny thing is, if you had just asked for a divorce, I would have given you a fair settlement. But you got greedy. You thought you could take everything and leave me with nothing. She didn't turn to look back at him. She didn't need to. Ethan's last words would be his alone to bear. Anna had already won, and the next chapter of her life was waiting for her. Before I share what happened next, the moment that left an entire room of journalists in stunned silence, I want to connect with you, my amazing viewers. Where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever had to fight for something you believe in, hit that like button, because this story is just getting started. The following morning, the house felt quieter than usual. The air was thick with a quiet tension, as if the walls themselves had sensed the seismic shift that had taken place overnight. Anna walked through the front door, her heels clicking purposefully against the polished hardwood floors. The familiar weight of the briefcase in her hand felt like a silent promise of what was to come. It wasn't just about the papers inside it. It was about the power she now held, the culmination of years of careful planning. She could feel the weight of everything shifting, inch by inch, into her control. As she entered the living room, she saw Ethan again, sitting in the same spot where he'd been the night before. His posture was different now, slouched, his earlier bravado replaced by a noticeable unease. His eyes flicked up to meet hers, but the smirk that had once been so certain on his face was now gone. In its place was something she hadn't seen in a long time: vulnerability. His plan had crumbled faster than he could have anticipated, and now he was the one who had to face the consequences. Ah, Anna, he said, his voice trying to sound as confident as before. but failing miserably. We need to talk about all this. Anna didn't reply immediately. Instead, she set her briefcase on the coffee table with deliberate slowness, her fingers brushing against the leather surface as if savoring the moment. She could feel his eyes on her, watching every move she made. She knew he was trying to read her, trying to gauge whether she would falter, whether there was still room to manipulate her. But Anna was done with being manipulated. "Yes, Ethan, we do," she replied calmly, her gaze never wavering from his. "But before we get into the details, I think you should know something." She opened the briefcase and pulled out a thick stack of documents, laying them out across the table in front of him. The papers were the legal and financial proof of everything she had been quietly working on. Proof of the empire Ethan had thought he controlled but hadn't truly built. Anna wasn't just a partner in name. She was the backbone of Harrison Enterprises, the silent force that had kept it running long after Ethan had stopped paying attention to the details. "You see," Anna continued, "these are the documents that prove your little sale of the company is not only invalid, but it's a blatant violation of the terms that you signed when we set up the company. As the majority shareholder, I have the final say in any major transaction. And guess what, Ethan? This wasn't approved." Ethan's face twitched, the cocky smile he had tried to hold on to fading into something resembling confusion. He looked at the papers in front of him, as if hoping they would magically disappear. But there was no magic here, just cold, hard facts. "That's not possible," Ethan muttered, though even he seemed to know the words held no power anymore. "I'm the one who runs this company. I have every right." "No, Ethan," Anna interrupted, her voice cutting through the air with a calm sharpness that made his words falter. "You were always the face of the company, the charming frontman, but I was the one running the show. Every decision you made, every misstep was documented. Every shady deal you tried to hide, I've been tracking them. Every time you dipped into the company's funds for your personal expenses, I've been keeping records. You didn't see it coming, did you? But I was always watching." His jaw tightened as he tried to regain some semblance of control. "This is ridiculous," he said, his voice rising slightly. "You can't do this. You'll ruin everything. You'll destroy us both." Anna felt the familiar rush of adrenaline course through her veins, but her outward calm never wavered. She was no longer the quiet partner who was content to sit in the background. She was the one holding the reins now. She leaned forward slightly, meeting his gaze with a steely determination. "You're right about one thing, Ethan. I could destroy everything," she said, her voice soft but filled with an undeniable power. "But that's not my goal. What I'm doing here is protecting everything I've built. I'm making sure that everything we worked for doesn't go up in smoke because of your greed." Ethan looked at her, his eyes narrowing in disbelief. "You're bluffing. This is all just smoke and mirrors. I'll fight you on this." Anna smiled, but it wasn't a smile of kindness. It was a smile that carried the weight of years of careful planning and calculated moves. "You really don't understand, do you? I've already taken the necessary steps. This company is protected. The SEC is already aware of your financial shenanigans, and I've already filed a report. Your so-called empire is about to collapse." The color drained from his face as the full weight of her words sank in. The arrogance that had been his armor for so long was now a distant memory. The truth was slowly sinking in, and with it, his fear. Anna watched him squirm, knowing that every second that passed was a step closer to his downfall. "I don't know what you think you've won here, Anna," he said, his voice losing some of its earlier defiance. "But this is just the beginning. You'll regret this." Anna didn't respond immediately. Instead, she took a moment to enjoy the quiet satisfaction that came from watching him unravel. He had spent so many years thinking that he was untouchable, that no one could touch his carefully constructed world. But now the foundation was crumbling beneath him. "No, Ethan," she said finally, her voice resolute. "This is the beginning of something much bigger. Not for you, but for me, for the company, and for everyone who's been left in the wake of your greed. You're the one who's finished." And with that, she stood, gathering her papers with quiet efficiency. She didn't need to say anything more. Ethan's defiant stare followed her as she walked toward the door, but it was clear to both of them that the game had already been won. The following days passed in a blur of controlled chaos. Anna was everywhere at once. Meeting with her legal team, speaking with the board members, making phone calls, and ensuring that the company's infrastructure was as secure as possible. She wasn't just trying to protect the business. She was dismantling Ethan's empire piece by piece, revealing the cracks in the foundation he had so carefully constructed. She could feel the weight of every decision she made, but she was driven by a singular purpose: to rebuild what had been nearly destroyed, and to do so on her terms. The first sign of Ethan's downfall came when Anna managed to secure a comprehensive audit of the company's financials. She had known for years that Ethan was sloppy with the numbers, always more interested in the outward appearance of success than in the fine details that kept a business running. His arrogance had blinded him to the risks of neglecting the financial security of their operations. But Anna had always been the one who caught those small discrepancies: missed payments, unaccounted for expenses, and, most importantly, the questionable transactions that had begun long before their divorce. She sat in the boardroom, carefully flipping through the audit report with a quiet sense of satisfaction. The numbers didn't lie. Ethan had been playing fast and loose with the company's funds for years, and now, all of it was laid bare in black and white. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. But this wasn't about vengeance. It was about ensuring that Ethan could never manipulate the company or anyone else again. David, the attorney who had been with her through every step of this process, stood beside her, watching her with a mix of admiration and concern. He knew she was playing a dangerous game, but he also knew that Anna was as sharp as they came. "You're sure you want to do this?" he asked softly, as if testing her resolve. Anna looked up, her eyes steady. "There's no turning back now," she said simply. "I'm not just protecting the company. I'm cleaning up the mess he left behind." The next step was making sure that the authorities were involved. Anna had been working with the SEC for weeks, providing them with detailed reports of Ethan's financial irregularities. The evidence was irrefutable. She had compiled transaction histories, correspondence, and contracts, each piece meticulously documented and cross-referenced. She had built a case so solid that there was no room for denial. But it wasn't just about the SEC. Anna had reached out to industry regulators, making sure that word of Ethan's misdeeds spread through the right channels. She had quietly contacted several key investors, warning them about the red flags she had uncovered. And as the information began to trickle out, the ripple effects were immediate. Ethan's new venture, which he had been so proud of, began to show signs of stress. Investors started pulling out. Clients began asking questions. The very foundation of his new empire was starting to crack under the weight of his lies. Ethan's panic was palpable. Anna could practically feel the desperation in his every move. He tried to hold meetings with the board, attempting to salvage what was left of his reputation. But no one was buying his carefully crafted story anymore. The investors he had once charmed with promises of growth and success were now backing away, spooked by the flood of irregularities that had surfaced. Ethan's position was growing weaker by the hour, and he knew it. Anna had been the architect of his downfall, but it had been a calculated move, done with precision and patience. She met with the board one final time, laying out the full extent of Ethan's fraudulent activities. The room was silent as she walked them through the evidence. Transactions between shell companies, embezzled funds, and falsified contracts. There was no room for debate. The truth was there for everyone to see. The board members, once loyal to Ethan, now turned their eyes toward Anna. They saw her as the leader, the one who had the vision to guide the company forward. They saw her as the future. As the meeting came to a close, Anna could feel the weight of the room shift. The power was no longer in Ethan's hands. It was in hers. She had exposed his lies, secured the company's future, and taken the first steps toward rebuilding everything he had tried to tear down. But Anna wasn't finished yet. She had one final piece to place in this intricate puzzle. She reached out to the media, allowing them a glimpse into the story of corporate deceit and manipulation that had unfolded behind the scenes. She wasn't looking for fame or glory. She was looking for accountability. The world needed to know what had happened, and how it could be prevented in the future. The day the story broke, the headlines were brutal. Ethan's name was everywhere, linked to financial fraud, corporate espionage, and a host of other criminal activities. His empire, the one he had built on lies and deception, was crumbling in real time. The world was watching, and Anna was in control of the narrative. As the news spread, Anna's phone rang nonstop. The SEC, the FBI, investors, clients, everyone wanted to know what had happened and how they could protect themselves from the same fate. Anna took the calls, answered the questions, and kept moving forward. She knew that this was just the beginning, but she was ready. The company was hers now, and she would make sure it thrived. The days that followed felt like a quiet storm, one that was building in intensity but hadn't yet reached its peak. Anna moved through the motions of her life with a calm that could only come from knowing she had already won. She met with the remaining board members, reassuring them that the company would not only survive the scandal but emerge stronger. Behind the calm, however, was a sharp focus. Every detail, every move was still part of a larger plan. She wasn't done yet. As Ethan's new venture continued to flounder, the media coverage grew more intense. Journalists, once eager to kiss the feet of the charismatic CEO, now turned their attention to the scandal that had been uncovered. News outlets spread word of Ethan's financial crimes like wildfire, each report bringing more questions, more scrutiny. He had thought he could escape, that he could rewrite the story in his favor, but now the truth was out, and it was tearing his world apart. Anna watched it all unfold, but she wasn't gloating. There was no joy in seeing someone else's empire fall, no satisfaction in the destruction of everything Ethan had spent years building. For Anna, this wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. It was about ensuring that the people who had been taken advantage of by Ethan's lies, the clients who had been deceived, and the investors who had been misled, would finally have the truth laid bare before them. Late one evening, Anna received a call from David. The tone in his voice was different, urgent. The SEC is moving forward with the investigation. They've just filed formal charges against Ethan. The weight of those words hit her like a rush of cold air. This was the moment she had been waiting for, the moment when the system would start to catch up with Ethan's web of deceit. The news broke the next morning, hitting like an avalanche. The headlines were everywhere. Ex-CEO of Harrison Enterprises charged with embezzlement and fraud. Ethan's financial empire built on lies collapses. SEC investigates $20 million scam. The story dominated every major news outlet, as authorities revealed the full scope of his fraudulent activities. What had once been a powerful company, revered for its supposed growth and success, was now exposed as a house of cards, ready to fall. Anna felt a quiet sense of satisfaction, but she didn't celebrate. She had known that this moment would come. What mattered now was making sure the company would rise from the ashes, stronger than before. While Ethan's world fell apart, Anna turned her attention to the future. The board rallied behind her, investors re-signed their commitments, and the company's clients began to return, reassured that the business was in good hands. The collapse of Ethan's empire wasn't a solitary event. It had a ripple effect, causing others to reevaluate their dealings with him. The partners he had once wooed with promises of profit now distanced themselves, their trust shattered. His new investors, who had believed in his pitch and his charm, began to panic as the fraud charges mounted. The ripple of exposure spread fast, and soon enough, Ethan was left alone in the ruins of his creation, his arrogance completely shattered. Anna knew it was only a matter of time before the authorities came knocking at his door. His once celebrated career was now a cautionary tale, one that would haunt him for the rest of his life. His phone calls went unanswered. His emails were ignored. His name was tarnished, and it was all because of his greed, his disregard for the trust that had been placed in him. In his pursuit of more, he had forgotten the most important lesson of all. Loyalty and integrity couldn't be bought. They had to be earned. As the weeks passed, Anna's vision for the company began to take shape. She wasn't just the caretaker of what had once been Ethan's legacy. She was building something entirely new. The company would evolve, embracing the lessons learned from the mistakes of the past, while forging ahead into a future that was driven by innovation, ethics, and a deep commitment to its clients. It was a transformation that had been necessary all along, but it took Ethan's fall for Anna to realize just how far they had strayed from their true purpose. The final blow came when the board officially voted to remove Ethan's name from the company's records entirely. Harrison Enterprises was now reborn, not just in name but in spirit. They were moving forward as Phoenix Innovation Group, a name that symbolized their resilience, their rebirth from the ashes of Ethan's destruction. The logo was updated, the marketing strategy overhauled, and most importantly, Anna's leadership was embraced by everyone who remained. And then came the final chapter. Ethan's assets were seized. The government, in its pursuit of justice, had begun to unravel his financial network. And in a matter of days, the money he had hidden in offshore accounts began to be recovered. The total amount was staggering, and it was all funneled back into the company, where it belonged. Ethan had tried to escape with millions, but in the end, it was Anna's careful planning, her patience, and her dedication to the truth that had won. His empire had collapsed, but her new one was just beginning. As the dust settled, Anna stood in the newly renovated office, looking out over the city. The view was the same as it had always been, but everything felt different now. She had faced down the wreckage of her past, navigated the treacherous waters of betrayal, and come out the other side stronger, smarter, and more in control than ever before. The world had changed for her, and the company she had fought for was now a beacon of integrity and innovation. She hadn't just survived. She had thrived. The sun rose over the city the morning after the board meeting, casting a soft golden light across the office building that once belonged to Ethan. Now it belonged to Anna. The transformation was not just physical. It was a shift in mindset, in energy, in purpose. The glass walls that had once symbolized transparency now held a deeper meaning. Clarity, openness, and honesty. It felt like a new dawn, a fresh beginning, one that was no longer bound by the past but driven by the vision Anna had always carried quietly inside her. In the weeks that followed, the company underwent a complete overhaul. The rebranding of Harrison Enterprises into Phoenix Innovation Group was more than just a name change. It was a rebirth. Anna brought in a team of leaders who shared her values, each one committed not just to the company's growth, but to its ethical foundation. The office, once filled with tension and the weight of secrets, now hummed with a renewed sense of purpose. There was a sense of unity, of pride, and most importantly, a belief that they could build something that would outlast any storm, any betrayal. The old systems, which had been bloated and inefficient under Ethan's reign, were torn down and replaced with streamlined, innovative processes. Technology was at the heart of it all. Where Ethan had dismissed digital security and forward-thinking solutions, Anna saw opportunity. The company's cybersecurity initiatives, which she had quietly developed during her years of working behind the scenes, now became the backbone of their new strategy. It wasn't just about protecting data. It was about leading the industry in creating secure, efficient systems that clients could trust. The clients who had once walked away, uncertain about the company's future, began to return. They were drawn not only by the strength of Phoenix Innovation Group's new leadership, but by the trust that had been rebuilt from the ground up. Anna knew it wasn't going to happen overnight, but she was committed to earning their confidence, piece by piece, contract by contract. And slowly they came back. Some were skeptical at first, cautious, but once they saw the changes, the transformation, they knew they had made the right decision. There were moments of doubt, of course. There always are when rebuilding from the wreckage of something as devastating as betrayal. But Anna didn't shy away from them. Instead, she used every obstacle as an opportunity to prove her resolve. Each challenge became fuel for the fire that drove her forward. Every time someone questioned the company's ability to recover, she saw it as a chance to show them that this new version of the business was stronger, smarter, and more resilient than ever before. It was during one of these moments, late at night, when Anna sat in her office overlooking the city, that she allowed herself to pause. The lights of the city sparkled below her, the view a reminder of everything she had worked for. She could feel the weight of the journey, the loneliness, the exhaustion, the stress. But she also felt something else. Pride. For the first time in years, she wasn't just a cog in the wheel. She was the one driving it forward, leading it to places no one had imagined before. The phone on her desk buzzed, pulling her out of her thoughts. It was a message from David, the attorney who had been with her through it all. The final settlement with the SEC has been completed, it read. Ethan's assets have been liquidated, and all fines have been paid. The company is in the clear. For a moment, Anna simply stared at the message, allowing the reality of it to sink in. Ethan had been forced to face the consequences of his actions, and now the company that had once been his was fully, irrevocably hers. The final chapter of that dark story had been written, but Anna knew it was only the beginning of something new. As she stood up from her desk and walked to the window, she allowed herself a rare moment of reflection. This was more than just a victory over Ethan. It was a victory for every person who had believed in her, for every employee who had stood by her when things seemed uncertain, for every client who had trusted her to protect their interests. Phoenix Innovation Group was no longer just a company. It was a symbol of resilience, of perseverance, of the power of transformation. Anna's phone buzzed again, this time with a message from one of the company's major clients, someone who had been with them for years before Ethan's fall. "I've been following the changes," the message said. "I just wanted to say that we're fully committed to the future with you. The transformation is incredible. Let's talk about expanding our partnership." She smiled as she read it, the weight of the message settling over her like a warm blanket. This was what she had worked for. The trust of people who knew that the company's values had shifted, that the leadership had transformed, and that Phoenix Innovation Group wasn't just a place of business. It was a place where integrity and innovation walked hand in hand. The journey had been long, and there had been times when she didn't think she could make it. But here, now, at the precipice of something new, Anna realized just how far she had come. She had taken the wreckage of her past and turned it into something beautiful, something lasting. As she turned away from the window and back to the office, her resolve was clearer than ever. She wasn't just going to rebuild what Ethan had destroyed. She was going to build something even greater. Phoenix Innovation Group wasn't just going to survive. It was going to thrive. And this was only the beginning. The final blow came silently, without fanfare, but its impact was devastating. Anna had known that there would come a time when everything would fall into place, when the last of the pieces would click into position, and the truth would be undeniable. And now that time had arrived. It was late in the evening. The office bathed in the soft glow of desk lamps as the city buzzed below. Anna was sitting at her desk, sifting through the final batch of documents that had arrived from the international regulators. Her eyes scanned the pages, but her mind was elsewhere, on everything she had fought for, on the long road ahead, and on the weight of the victory that was about to be sealed. The paperwork, the evidence, the reports, it was all leading to this moment. Ethan's empire had fallen, but there was one final step before she could fully close the door on the past. One last piece of unfinished business. She clicked the final file open on her screen. It was a transcript, an audio recording of a meeting that had taken place months ago. Ethan and Jessica, his new partner, discussing their plans for the company. Plans that had been carefully crafted in the shadows, away from Anna's prying eyes. Their voices were a mix of arrogance and excitement, believing they had already won, convinced that their manipulation would go unnoticed. But Anna had known better. She had always been one step ahead. As she listened to the recording, the cold precision of their words sent a chill down her spine. They had spoken of fraudulent contracts, of hidden accounts, and of plans to siphon away company funds into their own pockets. They had discussed it all like it was nothing more than a game. But the recording wasn't just damning. It was the final piece of the puzzle that would guarantee Ethan's downfall. It was the evidence that would solidify everything she had been building. The final blow that would dismantle any hope Ethan had left of ever rebuilding his life. She picked up the phone and dialed the number that had been waiting for this moment. It was the one call she had been preparing for. As the phone rang, Anna felt the familiar rush of adrenaline, an odd mix of satisfaction and resolve. The voice on the other end answered after a few rings. "This is Agent Thompson," the voice said, professional and calm. But Anna could hear the underlying urgency, the weight of the situation hanging in the air. "I've got something for you," Anna said, her voice steady. She gave him the details, sending over the recording and the accompanying evidence that would tie Ethan and Jessica to the scheme. "This is the final piece. You know what to do with it." The silence on the other end of the line spoke volumes. Agent Thompson didn't need to say anything more. She could feel the shift, the quiet acknowledgement that the final stage of this was unfolding. Ethan had no idea what was coming. His arrogance had clouded his judgment, and now it was too late to stop the inevitable. The following days were a blur of activity. Investigators, agents, the press. News of the final charges against Ethan and Jessica broke in a flurry, catching everyone off guard. The entire story was revealed to the world in stark detail. The extent of their fraud, the manipulation, the lies they had spun to secure their escape. Their empire, once seen as the future of business, was now exposed for what it truly was. A house built on deceit, crumbling beneath the weight of truth. For Ethan, it was over. The federal charges were far more than he could handle. His name, once celebrated in corporate circles, was now synonymous with scandal. The press turned on him with ruthless efficiency, broadcasting every detail of his financial crimes. His phone rang off the hook with angry calls from investors, business partners, even former friends who now saw him for who he truly was. He tried to fight back, to salvage some semblance of his reputation, but it was no use. The evidence was irrefutable, the web of lies too tangled to untangle. Ethan's arrest was swift. His assets were frozen, his accounts scrutinized, and his new venture dismantled just as quickly as it had been built. He was left with nothing but the consequences of his actions. The empire he had sought to create was gone, replaced by the cold reality of the law catching up with him. As for Anna, she watched it all unfold with a quiet sense of closure. There was no triumph in her victory, only the quiet satisfaction of knowing that the truth had prevailed. She had protected what was hers. She had rebuilt what had been nearly destroyed. And in the process, she had transformed her own life, finding strength she never knew she had. The day Ethan was sentenced, Anna stood outside the courthouse, watching the news crews pack up, their cameras trained on the man who had once been a powerful CEO. He was nothing now, a shadow of the man he used to be. She knew that this was the last time she would have to think about him. He was a chapter that had been closed, a part of her past that she could finally put behind her. And as the sun set that evening, casting a golden light across the city she had fought so hard to protect, Anna realized something she hadn't fully grasped until now. Sometimes, the best revenge wasn't about destroying your enemy. It was about proving to yourself that you were stronger than they ever imagined. It was about standing tall, knowing that no matter what they did, no matter how they tried to tear you down, you could rise up again, stronger, wiser, and ready to build something even greater. The final blow had landed, and now the future was hers. After months of relentless work, Phoenix Innovation Group was finally operating at full capacity. Anna had done what she had set out to do, rebuilt, restructured, and revitalized the company. But with every milestone came new challenges, and Anna had quickly learned that sustaining success was far harder than achieving it. In the quiet moments after her daily meetings, Anna found herself sitting in her office, staring out over the cityscape, her thoughts a mix of gratitude and concern. The company was stable now, but the competition was fierce. The world of technology and innovation never stood still, and every day brought a new disruption, a new idea, a new player in the game. Anna knew that to remain on top, she had to not only keep pace with these changes but lead them. Despite the corporate successes, Anna had begun to feel the weight of the isolation that had crept in during her years of struggle. She had neglected personal relationships, buried her feelings beneath the pressure of making everything work. But as the business gained stability, she found herself wondering about the things she had left behind. Friends, family, and the very relationships that had always been a foundation of her life. It wasn't until one evening, a rare dinner with her sister, Laura, that Anna realized how much she had distanced herself from everything that had once mattered. As they sat in the quiet warmth of the restaurant, Laura looked at Anna with a concerned expression, as if seeing right through her. "You've done so much, Anna," Laura said, her voice soft but unwavering. "But I can see it in your eyes. You've been so focused on the company, you've forgotten to live your life." Anna sighed and stared down at her plate, the truth of Laura's words settling in. She had been running from something. Perhaps from the fear of failing again, or maybe from the emptiness she had felt when Ethan's betrayal shattered her world. But she had filled that void with work, with the business, and now it was all she could see. There had to be more than this. "I don't know how to balance it, Laura," Anna admitted, her voice tinged with frustration. "I've sacrificed so much, but it feels like I'm always chasing something. Success, security, control. I don't even know what's left for me once I've achieved it all." Laura reached across the table and placed a hand on Anna's. "You've proven that you're capable of everything. But success doesn't mean much if you don't have people to share it with. It's not just about what you can build, but who you build it for." The words hung in the air, and for the first time in a long while, Anna allowed herself to feel the weight of what had been missing in her life. Connection, warmth, and the people who mattered most. In the days that followed, Anna began to take small steps toward finding balance. She reached out to old friends, reconnecting with those who had stood by her in the past. She made time for dinners, for walks in the park, for moments where the weight of the world could be set aside, even if only for a little while. She began to let herself laugh again, not just at the accomplishments she had achieved, but at the simple joys she had once taken for granted. And with that, something unexpected began to happen. As Anna embraced the softer parts of life, as she made room for the relationships that had always been there, she began to see her work in a new light. The business wasn't just her lifeline. It was a way to make a real difference, a way to build something that could leave a lasting impact. But it wasn't everything. It was a part of who she was, but it wasn't all she could be. One afternoon, as Anna stood before her team, unveiling their latest project, a new initiative focused on building tech solutions for underserved communities, she felt a shift within herself. This wasn't just about profitability or market share. This was about creating something that truly mattered, something that would change lives. The room was filled with energy, with a sense of purpose that Anna had only dreamed of in the early days of the company. She wasn't just a CEO anymore. She was a leader, a visionary, and most importantly, a person who had learned to embrace every part of who she was. She could see it in the faces of her team, their excitement, their belief in what they were building. She had finally found a way to blend the business with the human side of leadership. It was a slow and sometimes difficult journey, but Anna had come to realize that success wasn't just about building an empire. It was about building a life that was worth living. And now she was finally living it, not just in the boardroom, but in every aspect of her life. As she stood at the head of the room, looking out at the people who had helped her rebuild this company, Anna couldn't help but smile. This was just the beginning of the next chapter. She had fought to reclaim everything she had lost, and now she was building something even greater, something that would last for generations. And in that moment, Anna understood the greatest lesson of all, that the most important thing she could build was not just a company, but a legacy of love, trust, and purpose. As the weeks passed, Anna's vision began to take shape in ways she hadn't expected. Phoenix Innovation Group, under her leadership, wasn't just growing, it was evolving. The new initiative to create accessible technology for underserved communities began to gain momentum, and soon, it wasn't just a project. It was the heartbeat of the company. Anna wasn't merely a leader anymore. She had become a symbol of change, a reminder that integrity and innovation could coexist, that business could thrive while making a tangible impact on society. The media took notice. Articles appeared, not just about the success of the company, but about Anna herself, how she had rebuilt an empire from the ruins of betrayal, and how her leadership was defining a new era in business. Yet, amidst all the attention, Anna remained grounded. She didn't seek the spotlight. She had no interest in being a hero. What she cared about was the work, the people whose lives were being changed by the projects she spearheaded, the communities that would now have access to technology they could never have dreamed of before. But even with all the positive changes, there were moments of doubt. Anna would lie awake at night, her mind racing, wondering if she was truly doing enough. Was she making the right decisions? Was she pushing the company in the right direction? Could she sustain the momentum, the growth, and the vision for the future? It wasn't easy, and there were times when she felt like she was teetering on the edge of burnout. It was during one of those long nights, as Anna sat alone in her office, that she received a message from Laura. She opened it, reading the words that made her pause and take a deep breath. "You've done so much, but don't forget to take care of yourself. Your world can't grow if you don't grow with it." The simplicity of Laura's message hit her harder than she expected. Anna had spent so much time focused on building the company, fixing what had been broken, and making sure everything was in order that she had neglected herself in the process. The irony wasn't lost on her. She had built something beautiful, something that could change the world, but she had almost forgotten to live in it. The following day, Anna made a decision. She took a step back from her constant grind. She gave herself permission to slow down, to breathe, to focus not just on the company but on her own well-being. She spent more time with her family, reconnected with friends, and, for the first time in a long while, allowed herself to feel joy without the shadow of responsibility looming over her every moment. As the months went by, the changes were not just external. Anna found a balance, a rhythm that allowed her to lead without losing herself. Phoenix Innovation Group continued to flourish, expanding its reach and impact. The company's new initiative in underserved communities was now being recognized as a leader in social responsibility in the tech industry. Anna's leadership had inspired others, employees, investors, even competitors, to rethink what business success could look like. One afternoon, while in a meeting with potential investors, Anna was struck by something a partner said. "We don't just invest in companies anymore," the partner remarked. "We invest in people. And we believe in you, Anna. What you're building here isn't just about numbers, it's about legacy. It's about real, lasting change." The words resonated with Anna deeply. She had spent so many years fighting to protect what she had, to reclaim what had been taken from her, that she hadn't fully realized the true value of what she was creating. She wasn't just rebuilding a company. She was building a future, one where business and humanity worked together to create a better world. Her legacy wasn't just the wealth she had regained, but the change she had made in the lives of the people around her. As Phoenix Innovation Group expanded globally, Anna made sure the company never lost sight of its core mission. She pushed the team to innovate, to continue developing groundbreaking technologies, but always with a focus on sustainability, accessibility, and community impact. It wasn't about being the biggest or the richest. It was about being the best at what truly mattered. On the day of the company's annual meeting, Anna stood before the board, her leadership team, and her employees, her heart swelling with pride as she looked around the room. The faces of the people who had stood by her, who had helped her rebuild and transform, were filled with hope and determination. This wasn't just a business, it was a movement, and she was at the helm. As she spoke to them, Anna realized that the road she had traveled had shaped her into the leader she had always dreamed of becoming. It wasn't about outsmarting the competition anymore, or proving that she could outlast Ethan's betrayal. It was about creating a company that could endure the test of time, one that would inspire future generations to not only build successful businesses but to do so with integrity and purpose. "We are just getting started," Anna said to her team, her voice steady and full of conviction. "The future is ours to shape, and together we will not just lead the industry, we will redefine it." As the applause filled the room, Anna smiled, knowing that this was only the beginning. She had learned to balance ambition with compassion, success with humanity. She had found peace in the chaos and strength in vulnerability. And now, as the leader of Phoenix Innovation Group, she was ready to change the world, not just through technology, but through the way business was done. The empire she had built was no longer just a testament to her survival. It was a reflection of her vision, a vision that would continue to inspire, to innovate, and to transform long after she was gone. Anna had done more than reclaim what was taken from her. She had built something far greater, a future where integrity, innovation, and humanity would always lead the way. As the months turned into years, Anna's leadership began to leave a profound mark on the world around her. Phoenix Innovation Group became a beacon of hope for those who believed business could be done differently, where the bottom line was just one aspect of success, but not the whole story. Anna had built a legacy, but more importantly, she had reshaped an entire industry's approach to responsibility, sustainability, and technology's role in society. Her commitment to transparency and ethics was not just a mission statement on a website. It was woven into the very fabric of the company. Anna had made sure that everyone who worked with her, from the highest executives to the entry-level employees, shared this vision. They were a team bound not just by professional goals, but by a shared belief in what they were creating, a business that didn't just contribute to the economy but also to the welfare of the world. One of the proudest moments for Anna came when Phoenix Innovation Group was awarded the Global Social Impact Award for its groundbreaking work in making technology accessible to marginalized communities. The award ceremony took place in Paris, and as she walked up to accept the honor, her mind went back to the days when she had been uncertain, when she had been consumed by doubts and fears of failure. In that moment, standing before an audience of leaders, innovators, and visionaries, Anna realized how far she had come. But even with all the accolades, there was one thing that Anna couldn't ignore. There was still much work to be done. She understood that success wasn't a destination, but a journey that required constant evolution. And while she had created a company that embodied her values, Anna knew there were challenges ahead that could potentially derail everything she had worked for. The world was changing rapidly, and she had to stay ahead of the curve. The tech industry was, as always, an ever-shifting landscape. Anna knew that her company could not afford to rest on its laurels. Competitors who once dismissed her company as just another tech firm were now paying attention. They saw the innovations coming out of Phoenix, the impact it was making, and they wanted in. Anna's next challenge was to continue pushing the boundaries of what was possible while maintaining the integrity of the company. This meant investing heavily in research and development, expanding into new markets, and ensuring that every product released was not only innovative but also aligned with the values they had established. It was a delicate balance, one that required Anna's sharpest focus and unwavering commitment. But as much as she immersed herself in her work, she never lost sight of the lessons she had learned along the way. She had learned to trust her instincts, to trust her team, and perhaps most importantly, to trust herself. She had learned that it wasn't about being perfect. It was about being consistent, being fair, and being true to her core beliefs. At home, Anna found herself more at peace than ever. The relationships she had once neglected were now stronger than ever. Her family had always been her anchor, and she had learned to make more time for them. She spent weekends with her sister Laura, reconnecting with old friends, and even finding time to travel and experience the world she had once only glimpsed through the lens of work. It was during one of these trips, a retreat to a remote village in the Swiss Alps, that Anna had a conversation that would change the course of her life once again. She had been invited to speak at an international conference on global technology and sustainability, but what she didn't expect was to meet someone who would challenge her in ways she hadn't anticipated. Sitting across from her at a small cafe was Michael, a young visionary in the world of environmental technology. He had heard her speak at several conferences and admired her work, but had never had the chance to meet her personally. Their conversation started out innocently enough, discussing the potential for sustainable energy solutions, but as the conversation progressed, Anna realized that Michael wasn't just interested in her company's success. He was interested in her mission. "You've built something incredible, Anna," Michael said, his eyes alight with enthusiasm. "But there's one thing I think you're missing. You've revolutionized the tech industry with your focus on accessibility. But what if you could merge that with environmental responsibility in a way no one's thought of yet?" Anna raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Go on." Michael leaned in, his voice lowering slightly. "What if Phoenix could be at the forefront of not just tech solutions but green solutions? We've seen what's happening with climate change. Technology has the power to solve this. But we need companies like yours, with your influence and reach, to lead the charge." It was a thought that hadn't crossed Anna's mind, and yet it felt right. It felt like the next step, an extension of everything Phoenix stood for, a natural evolution of the work they were doing. Michael shared his ideas for integrating green technology into the company's existing infrastructure, offering a roadmap for collaboration between environmentalists, tech developers, and the global communities that needed these solutions the most. That night, Anna lay awake in her hotel room, the weight of the conversation sinking in. She realized that Phoenix Innovation Group could evolve again, this time into something that not only reshaped the tech industry but also contributed to the global fight against climate change. The possibilities were endless, and she felt the excitement of another new chapter on the horizon. The next morning, she reached out to her executive team, asking for a meeting. She shared Michael's vision with them, the ideas for sustainable technology integration, and what it could mean for their future. The response was overwhelmingly positive. Anna could see the spark in her team's eyes. They were ready for this new challenge, ready to build a legacy that was not just profitable but world-changing. And so, Phoenix Innovation Group began its next chapter. They developed partnerships with environmental organizations, implemented cutting-edge green technologies, and pushed the boundaries of what was possible with sustainable energy. Anna knew that this new direction would be challenging, but it was exactly what she had always wanted. A chance to leave a legacy that went beyond business, beyond profit. It was a chance to leave a legacy that would help save the planet for future generations. As the company moved forward, Anna realized that the road ahead would not always be smooth. There would be obstacles, setbacks, and moments of doubt. But she was no longer afraid. She had already faced the darkest of times and emerged stronger. And now, with her vision of a sustainable, innovative future in sight, she was ready to take Phoenix Innovation Group to new heights, ready to show the world that the future wasn't just something to survive. It was something to create. This was the beginning of a new legacy. And for Anna, the journey had only just begun.